I tell you, all these people now saying I love Roman Reigns just because he's turned heel, pretending they were fans since the beginning. It makes me absolutely sick. But I will tell you this, if you had told me that a pay-per-view that was going to happen 1 week after a pay-per-view was actually going to fill up my happy glands and make me feel all gleeful and peaches and cream, I wouldn't have believed you. We did have SummerSlam, a week went by, and now we have WWE Payback, and small spoiler, I thought it was really good. I mean, it was quick, it didn't outstay its welcome, it had a cool finish, it had talking points. So let's take the finger of power, the thing that does all the pointing, and let's up those downs for WWE Payback. These Roman Reigns fans, I mean, they are unbelievable. But look, on the kickoff show, we did have the Iconics versus Ruby Wright and Liv Morgan, which, yes, came out of absolutely nowhere. Now, I did appreciate the fact that WWE tried to tie a little bit of story in here, but the real issue is that they haven't done a great job of that narrative on Raw. So when it gets to a pay-per-view, and again, the match gets announced on social media about 8 minutes before the thing, it's quite hard to invest in. Also, we're not calling them the Riot Squad anymore. They're now called like Forever Riot or something? I have no idea. Go Roman. So yeah, there was a bit when Billie Kay was trying to tell Liv Morgan, oh, Ruby Wright pushed you should fall out again. And Liv thought about doing this. It looked like she was going to walk to the back, but she didn't. Somehow Riot and Liv got together and they won the match using both of their moves at pretty much the same time. I mean, again, the effort here was good. And if we had done a better build, it probably would have been quite enjoyable. You got to be honest with it, the down. Also, I'm just biased towards the pre-show because WWE has ruined my brain. It was Apollo Crews versus Bobby Lashley to start WWE Payback off properly, and straight away MVP or UMVUP did the best promo ever because he said, as you know, the Hurt Business is in the business of hurt. Thanks, MVP. I was really confused with all this getting up. Now, obviously, MVP and Shelton Benjamin were at ringside, and I guess they were a little bit bothersome, but they never really interfered. And the story here was that Apollo Crews is really quick and he's really agile, but unfortunately for him, Bobby Lashley is really strong, and every time he's going to get an opportunity, he's going to smack him up. And it had a slow start. When we did build to Apollo doing his moonsaults and his German suplexes and just flying around the ring, it was actually kind of cool, and I believe if you were at home watching this as I was, you'd be like, yeah, go Apollo, go! He also did a frog splash, which we absolutely have to stop doing on WWE TV until Montez Ford goes away, because you ain't gonna do it better than him. And really, the sad realization Apollo Crews has was that Bobby Lashley is the almighty one, and he basically just got up from all of this and applied the full Bobby or whatever. What the hell are they calling it? Call it the Lashley lock. Call it the Lashley lock. But they're calling it the full Lashley or something stupid like that, which sounds like you're being whipped with some kind of whip. What else do you whip something with? Anyway, we all know how devastating that move is. Apollo Crews had to tap out or submit. He's done. He's finished. He's over. Bobby Lashley, your new US champ. I still think Cedric Alexander needs to be inserted in here somewhere because I think it would add a cool twist, and then Ricochet could feud with him, and that would elevate them back to where they should be. And afterwards, well, fair play to WWE, because as the Hurt Business were celebrating, Apollo got back in the ring, he whipped all their asses while shouting, I'm going to get that title back, which I actually quite liked, because we don't usually do that with our baby faces. At least he kind of ended this looking strong, although also weak, you don't have no belt. There was also this mad thing afterwards that I thought they were going to do throughout the evening, but they only did it for the Hurt Business. Like again, when they were celebrating with this title, it's just this I'll just show you. They did this with photos. I mean, what the hell was that? Paul Heyman was then backstage being a massive troll. Like, Caleb Braxton approached him. It was like, oh, what's going on with Roman Reigns? Has he signed the contract? Hasn't he signed the contract? And Paul was like, well, don't ask me. Go ask Roman. He's right in there. So Caleb said, well, can I go in? And he said, no. He'd do very well on Twitter. Now, yes, I will admit it was a little bit dumb that we had a triple threat match all set up, but one of the guys hadn't signed the deal. This has a really good payoff, so it's fine. Keith Lee was then in his locker room and was approached by, of all people, John Bradshaw Layfield. I mean, who in the hell saw that coming? He also said to Keith, look, if you win tonight, it will be great, but if you lose, it will also be great. So I was like, oh, great, thanks, John. Thanks for coming. But we also did something stupid here, because JBL was like, oh man, do you want to buy into this like special financial project I've got? It's only going to cost you $1 million. Keith Lee was like, I don't have $1 million. Don't tell me that with my stars. Let me pretend they're rich and living on yachts and flying off to the moon. Big E versus Sheamus followed, and I do know we've been doing a little bit with them on SmackDown, but I kind of feel like the build here was a little bit weak, especially because Big E, as we now know, is going to be the next top main eventer. At least that's what I've decided, and that's what I want, because as you know, I am on the Big E boat. And why do I say that? Well, it's simple, because after Sheamus had worked over his knee a little bit, when he was back on 2 feet and in control, he started to dance. This all ties into everything he's been saying on Talking Smack recently, because he hears the criticism, oh, well, if Big E's going after the Universal title, he should be 100% serious. And Big E is like, no, I shouldn't. I should be serious when I'm serious. And when I want to have a bit of fun, I should have a bit of fun, which is exactly what he did here. If you haven't seen him on Talking Smack over the weekend, what the hell are you doing? Go and watch Big E on Talking Smack when you're done here. Ending came when Sheamus went for the bro kick, but Big E turned into a power bomb and then hit the big ending. And again, like I've already said, as long as Big E wins at the moment, that's okay. We need to start doubling down on this project. I want everybody to see that he is a worthy Universal title contender, especially given what just happened with Roman Reigns. This gets a very easy up, satisfying television. A Matt Riddle interview was after this, and all of a sudden I was struck down with fear, because Matt Riddle said that after he defeats Baron Corbin, he's going to take his crown. And this was just like, a little phrase that he threw in there, because it is WWE. I was like, oh, please no. Do not have Matt Riddle beat Baron Corbin and start wearing that stupid crown around that looks like we bought it from Toys R Us. I don't want or need King Riddle, and that even sounds a little bit weird. He was then also asked about a tweet that Baron Corbin had done earlier in the day, which essentially said, I'm going to prove that Riddle is a failure at work as much as he is a failure at home. If you know, you know, and if you don't know, don't worry about it. But I know what that was referencing, and I certainly don't think that we should be referencing that stuff on WWE TVs, because 1, I just think it's inappropriate, but also 2, this means nothing to casual fans. I know not a lot of casual fans are watching WWE at the moment. We've got to reel them back in on a fishing hook. We'll stay away from stuff like this. Again, did not like it, down. Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler were then arguing about who should be able to use the Flintstones phone. And they weren't doing that, but it was essentially 2 kids having a row about who should use the stupid toy that the teacher has. And this actually gets good before the end of the night. But this whole good cop, bad cop, like you, don't like you, stupid. Especially because then halfway through this, they realize, oh no, wait, we need to be friends if we want to win the tag team championships later. So they just made up. Thankfully, Matt Riddle did indeed beat Baron Corbin. A little bit worried there, but it was decent up. Baron was an ass hat straight away because he attacked Riddle during his pyro, but that actually looked quite cool. And then he started to beat them down as he shouted, I'm the king and you're a pauper, because he actually believes this stuff. Now, Baron did do a lot of rest holds, but this kind of ties into the Apollo Crews match from earlier. It meant when Riddle was on the offensive, it just built and built and built, and I was like, yeah, go get him, you barefooted crazy man. It was a really good bit when Corbin did indeed hit the deep 6, and I thought, oh my gosh, that's going to be it, but Matt Riddle kicked out at 2.999, and then from there, he eventually got in the Bro Derek, and yeah, 1, 2, 3, Matt Riddle, I think, gets his first win on a main roster pay-per-view. I don't know if that's true or not. This all seemed fine as well, because backstage, Matt Riddle said he was done with Baron Corbin, he was going to move on to bigger and better things, when the king arrived and absolutely whooped his ass. So we're not done here, and I swear, Matt Riddle better just beat him on SmackDown. If we go back to 50-50 booking, I'm gonna rip my nose off. I mean, that only affects me, but sometimes you gotta do crazy things when you're seeing crazy things happening on TV. And then for all my moaning and negative Nancying, we had Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler, or Jaxler, my personal name from them, taking on Sasha Banks and Bayley for the Women's Tag Team Championships. I thought it was great. I really enjoyed it. I had a wonderful time, like being on a roller coaster. I don't like roller coasters, but you take my point up. Obviously, the whole point is that this new team can't get on, whereas Bayley and Sasha Banks are the best of friends. So they kept tagging each other in or refusing to tag the other person. And Nia especially was at fault for this because she had hurt her knee and she was like, my knee. But she wouldn't tag in Shayna because she thought she was better. What an absolute moron. Finally, she actually got a brain like the Scarecrow in The Wizard of Oz, and she did tag in Baszler, who ran a pretty good hot tag. The reason I say that is because you don't associate Shayna Baszler with running hot tags, but I thought it was all right. And then we got to the finish, and it was so smart, I feel like the only way we can do it justice is by reciting a poem. As Shayna was winning like a boat in the dock, she got Bayley in a clutch and Sasha in a lock. It was a dual submission and the friends had no land, not even Sasha when she stretched out her hand. In fact, that was worse as it increased the pressure and Bayley had no choice but to accept this measure. For she tapped out and lost new tag team champs we had, and as soon as that happened, Shayna recalled that Jax was bad. And seriously, that's what went down when Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler decided, we can win this if we're friends, and they got their phone out and took a picture for Instagram. They didn't do that, I'm absolutely lying. They did come together and Shayna Baszler put a dual submission on both Sasha and Bayley, and even though Sasha desperately tried to help her friend once again, I keep going wrong, and stretched her arm out, Baszler was able to use that to her advantage and basically choke Bayley. She had to, just accept it was done, and you got brand new tag team champions. Now, I still don't really like Jaxler, especially because afterwards, Nia was celebrating like a goof, and I was like, what's happened to you? Why do you keep changing personalities? And Shayna felt a little bit awkward here. But in terms of tying this into the story between Banks and Bayley, I thought it was phenomenal. I really did. And I'm actually starting to feel sympathy for Sasha Banks, who's doing her best and it always goes wrong. So that heel-face dynamic is already coming in, and for weeks I've been going, I don't know who I want to be, good guy, bad guy. Look, you can't get mad at this stuff. It's really well thought out. What we're going to do with Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax, I have no idea. We'll find out in around about 12 hours. And then see, I don't want to be that guy, but I'm going to be that guy, turn on the switch. What did I tell you? Everyone was melting down about Keith Lee after Raw a few days ago. And I was like, let's just see what happens at the pay-per-view, because I had a sneaky feeling in my tum-tum that Keith Lee was going to win. And then we got to Payback. We got Keith Lee versus Randy Orton. And if you can believe it, you probably think I'm lying. I promised you that I'm not. Keith Lee defeated the Viper, the 13, 14, whatever the hell he is, time world champion, clean in the middle of a WWE ring. I thought this absolutely rocked too. I mean, at one point, Lee hit Orton so hard he went flying out of the ring, and that was the whole point of all of this. Keith Lee is a really big, strong guy who's also exceedingly agile, and I know if you've been following the man's career for a long time, he can be more agile than this, but again, let's give it time. Maybe in a year, they'll be flying so high up in the arena, you don't even see him anymore. And it seemed bad when Keith was getting back into the ring and Orton hit him with that draping DDT, but when he went for the RKO, Keith stopped him, he thrusted him up in the air, he hit a spirit bomb that looked like it killed Randy, and like I say, pinned him 1, 2, 3, and I had some kind of, fit on my sofa, because this was like when Kevin Owens came in and beat John Cena. I couldn't believe it, and straight away I'm like, well, Keith Lee, he's a main eventer, give him the title, he is the best. So I tuned in to see something that I hope was going to make me happy. I saw it, and I walked away feeling happy, and that happy feeling means I will tune in again. You see, it ain't that hard. Announcers pushed this like crazy too, especially Samoa Joe, who was like, what, how did this go down? Oh my gosh, and it was just perfect, it really, really was. But again, if Randy Orton now beats Keith Lee on Raw, I will dive into my television set and I will run amok throughout the Thunderdome. More nonsense about Roman Reigns and Paul Heyman followed and being like, oh, is Roman Reigns going to sign the contract? And of course, in reality, he would do, because he wants a Universal title shot once more. This ends very, very well, so I'm not mad at it. Payback then officially cemented itself as a good show, which again absolutely blew my mind, given it was only coming 7 days after SummerSlam. But Dominic Mysterio and Rey Mysterio, father and son team, teaming up to take on Seth Rollins and don't call him Buddy Murphy. Just a barrel of joy. Rey pretended he was going to start, but this was a plan by the Mysterios because Dominic ran wild for a while, and it annoyed Seth Rollins so much he just tagged out and told Murphy to deal with this. This is where we give a couple of thumbs up for Seth Rollins because he has been awesome in this entire feud. I think my thumbs are stuck in this direction. Mysterio then had a short flurry. There we go. Mysterio then had a short flurry, then he got cut off, and he had to do a hot tag to Dominic, who did some stuff, but then he got cut off. And it was just a really good back and forth where at one point I was like, I don't really know who's going to win here. Once again, I was hoping my happy glands were going to be filled up and I would see the Mysterios get the victory, but you just didn't know. As it turned out, it was a twist in the tail. And that was because just when it looked like Rollins and Murphy had this in control, including Seth looking at Murphy and shouting, kick him in the head, referring to Rey Mysterio because he had him, Murphy went to do this, he missed, he kicked Seth in the head, and that turned the tables and allowed the good guys to run wild. I was also loving this because you could just see how happy Rey Mysterio was being there with his boy. I mean, my dad doesn't get wrestling at all. He still thinks that Vince McMahon is older than 75 just because most of wrestling is a work. I'm like, Dad, that's just ludicrous. Well, then maybe it is true. But essentially what we did to justify the ending is that it was all one-eyed Ray who basically done the work. He had used his experience and all of his skills to ensure that they were on top, and then he got his son in to finish everything off, who did indeed hit a 619. He hit the frog splash, again, Montez Ford, but whatever, and he actually pinned Buddy Murphy there for the 1-2-3. And I'll tell you, for only his second match, Dominic Mysterio's pretty good. It just runs in those genes. They have one eye and they're great wrestlers. So if you're all mad right now saying, oh, I can't believe that Dominic got a win in his second match, well, he did, but he also didn't, because again, it was Ray that did the work. It was just happy feelings. I keep saying that word, but it's happy feelings. I am very proud of the Mysterio family. And they got their revenge or payback. I thought it was wonderful. I have watched Christmas movies that had a worse message than this. Like Jingle All the Way, which is also the best Christmas movie ever. Although I do want to ask, what's the deal with WWE and just trying to break everybody up? Because that was the insinuation here. Seth Rollins was livid that Murphy had kicked him in the head and then gone and lost the match, and he walked away just looking at him going, you piece of trash, you don't even have a first name. But over the weekend, in terms of this seed planting, which I do usually enjoy, we've now had it with them. We had it with Shinsuke Nakamura and Cesaro. We had it with Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross. We had it with Sheamus, but he just walked out on The Miz and John Morrison. That's the whole gimmick of Nia Jackson, Shayna Baszler, and Liv Morgan and Ruby Riott. It's kind of very, very, very strange. And then I'll be damned, like I've already said, I didn't really get what we were doing with the Roman Reigns, Paul Heyman contract signing. But when we got to The Fiend versus Braun Strowman versus Roman Reigns, Roman just didn't come out at first because he hadn't signed the deal. He was like, nah, I'm fine. I'll wait, I'll hang out, I'll play some Nintendo. And yeah, sure, in any other real sport, you'd be like, well, that's absolutely ludicrous. Nobody would do that, but it's not a real sport. It is professional wrestling. You should take advantages to enhance the story whenever you can. That's why I think I got it around here somewhere. Oh, that one is getting it up. It also meant that at first we had a rematch from SummerSlam between The Fiend and Braun Strowman. And once again, I just thought they went out of their way to kick each other's ass. I mean, there was weapon shots and they fell through a table and they were throwing each other into LED boards. Yes, The Fiend got his stupid cartoon hammer out, which I never enjoy, but it didn't lead to a finish or anything like that. So I just ignored it and I pretended it was a stick of fire. A stick of fire would hurt. Thankfully, finally, WWE also tied this to everything with Alexa Bliss, because we saw her backstage watching this while playing with her one braid. I still think that's stupid, but whatever. And everyone was like, oh no, what's going on with Alexa Bliss and The Fiend? And given that I guess we're going to turn Bray Wyatt face, maybe they're going to be some kind of relationship here. We also got a flipping ring explosion when Bray Wyatt superplexed Braun Strowman back into it, and poor Charles Robinson took the most ridiculous bump over the top rope, but he was doing his best. And a little part of me was like, oh, I feel like we should have waited until we had real fans before we did that. Especially because I don't see The Fiend as a super big guy, even though he's not small. But it was at this point that Roman Reigns came out with Paul Heyman. He signed the deal there, and then it's like, well, this looks like a perfect situation to me. And he tried to pin both guys and failed, but who even cares? Because you know what he did? He ruined Braun Strowman with a steel chair. When The Fiend tried to give him the mandible claw, he just whacked him right in the testicles, and nobody wants that. And then he speared the monster among men, pinned him, got the 3 count, and he is your new Universal Champion. I mean, oodalally. I said this on Twitter, but I will say it again here. Presentation is everything. Because if WWE had done this without changing Roman, it would have sucked. But because he's got this new badass persona and he's teamed with Heyman, I can't think of a better ending. We got Heyman and Reigns posing at the end of Payback, which just made me go, what the hell? 2020 is the craziest year ever. And again, just as one final caveat, as I've done with other matches on this card, do not now have Roman Reigns turn his back on Paul Heyman and be like, I got what I wanted and we're done. There is potential here. You can do that down the line, sure, but take your damn time. My only real gripe is that Roman Reigns came out to the same music. And I know we're picking at straws here, but I just think it's a great way to sort of underline, wow, this is a brand new Roman Reigns, and you can even hear it with your ears. You don't know what he's doing in his ring gear because he just wore his merchandise, his Wreck Everyone to Leave t-shirt, which I did like, because I'm not even bothering to get changed. Who gives a hoot? So maybe on SmackDown we'll get that. But look, it did disappoint me here, and that's why I have to give it a down. But that's such a loser, stupid down. All of this, it was so damn good. One of my favorite main events in ages, because I was invested in the story. In better news though, and I may be wrong with this because, I double and triple checked it, but I was so fascinated, I couldn't actually let the details sink into my head. I don't think we had one stupid finish on a WWE show. No nonsense, no shenanigans, no surprise roll-ups, devastating moves in all the sports entertainment. Just good, clean finishes that enhance views and enhance narratives. I don't know what's going on. I'm a little bit scared. Aliens gonna arrive tomorrow. Aliens, because you can't predict nothing in 2020. That's getting it up. It also means when you go back to doing surprise roll-ups, if you give it time, that will go back to being a legit and well thought out finish. But I don't care. I don't care what you think about this. I enjoyed this show so much, I'm giving it an up, even if that makes you mad. Well, you can go get mad in the comments. You will Scott Hill scary fingers. I thought it was faboo. Now, yeah, please do go in those comments, call me a bald asshole, and let me know what you thought of the show. Like the video, share the video, subscribe to What Culture Wrestling. Head over to whatculture.com to keep up to date with the fallout, or you can do it on Twitter at What Culture WWE. Going crazy, and watch more videos here on What Culture Wrestling. My name is Simon from What Culture, and I'll see you tomorrow when we up those Downs for Raw.